back to the class, everyone. Today we're going to be doing another modding video. This is something that I've been thinking about a lot recently, and it seems to be becoming more and more prevalent the more and more mods become to the game, which only seems to be going up. So what we're going to cover today is when to health arrow, and basically what we're going to be taking apart today is when you should be using a health arrow on your characters, really versus a speed or maybe even an offense primary. We're not talking about the set, and we're going to talk a little bit about the secondaries and really just kind of how they're super inferior and not great. With that being said, why are we even talking about this? The game completely has always revolved around speed. Why in the world would you forfeit a 32 speed arrow for a 16% health when speed is what rules the game? So there are a lot of characters in the game, first off, that just want speed, like Echo or maybe Gideon. And on those, at that point, you don't care. You just want to get the 32 speed arrow on them and call it a day. But there are a lot of characters in the game that want both speed and health. Not just necessarily health, but both of them at the same time. And my little chart here is going to show you guys just how bad it is to be using a speed primary arrow and a health percent secondary. You can see here on the health side, the most you can possibly get out of health secondaries rather than health primary is about 10%, whereas the primary is 60%. So you're only getting about 65% of the health that you would be getting if you had the best stat on the primary, where speed is much more forgiving, where it as a secondary, where it'll get almost all the way up to the primary speed of 32 at 31. So the point of this here isn't to show you guys, oh, why don't you have any more, any 31 speed mods? Like I don't think I've ever even seen one of those. The point here is that it's way easier to get speed as a secondary and way easier to get health as a primary. So on characters that want both, or maybe even lean a little bit towards health, you really need to be using a health arrow. So practically what we're going to be doing in this video is I'm going to be showing 5 of my characters that already have health arrows that have been really, really good, and 5 characters that I would like to also have health arrows. So we're going to go ahead and bring up the game here. So yeah, we have, if you want to stop the video now and just take the list, go for it. But yeah, so these top 5 are all characters that I currently have health arrows on, and that I really think are non-negotiable, that you really have to have them. So we're just going to go down the line here, starting off with General Grievous. This is a huge one. There's like 4 or 5, maybe 6 reasons that you should be running a health arrow on Grievous versus a speed arrow, even if it has fairly low speed. Like this one only has 14. So at 14 speed, we're already getting almost half the speed we would be getting from the primary, but at the same time, we're getting a much better return than if we were working with a health percent secondary. So, I mean, I don't know if I even need to explain this, but Grievous's damage is based on health. So you want to be hitting really hard, so you need the health. You don't want him getting taken out by an AoE, because you want him to be the last one surviving so he gets his bonus turns. You want him... You don't really need him that fast, because there's a lot of turn meter mechanics with his lead. It's a non-negotiable weapon. He has to have a really good health arrow. A speed arrow with good health secondaries really is going to fall significantly short. Daka. So we talked earlier about characters that want both health and speed. Daka, she'll take speed. Not that it's necessarily bad for her, but she'll take it, but she honestly doesn't really need it. Like we've been running you can see here, a health primary arrow with 0 speed on it, and it honestly works just fine. She gains so much turn meter from her kit whenever zombie or whoever else dies that isn't her, that you really just want her to stack as much as she possibly can through her unique ability, that whenever they die, she gets 10% max health permanently, at least until the end of that encounter. So, and she's one, a little Grievous, you would like a little bit of speed, maybe somewhere in the 10-15 range, but Daka, like, it's really worth it even at 0. Even at 0 speed, it's worth it at a health primary, and they're just very, very good. I've even found it, this is kind of a specific use, but I've even found it to be useful for her to be slow in the SLKR versus Lord Vader matchup, because at that point, she's actually taking less turns, and it's less likely for her to die to dots, because SLKR will be able to take 3 turns to her 1 and constantly cleanse her. So Doc is number 2 on the list. Number 3, Wampa. And I think this is something that, while it's very new, everybody's pretty much aware of it. So with Wampa's new GAC Omicron, which is fantastic, by the way, he gets bonus max health included in with his kit. And on top of that, his protection up is also built on that max health, and he's going to be countering and gaining a bunch of turn meter with how we're not going to go into like all the intricacies of his kit, but basically he doesn't need speed. He's just fine using a health arrow. It makes him tankier. It helps with his protection up to be able to be more common, and ultimately just makes him a lot more survivable. So yeah, we only have a 10 speed on him. Like, you definitely do want a little speed on Wampa. You don't want him to be at his base speed. That would be really bad, because he has to eventually take a turn. And if there are a few characters like Pow or Mon Mothma that aren't actually hitting him and allowing him to counter, then he might just die. So you do want a little bit of speed on him. But again, you're getting way farther ahead by putting a health primary on him. Number 4 on the list, Crew. Crew, and this is very different from the other 3 characters, is a tank. And how his health works and how health and defense work into his kit is it is super beneficial for him to have as much health as possible. Defense sits give the best amount of defense. Kind of what we were looking at before with the speed and health. It's the best percentage you can get from defense through the set, and health the best percentage you can get through the primary. So we have him actually, this isn't about the rest of this, but yeah, we have him all set up with health because he's going to be able to heal whenever he's getting hit because of how his unique works. I'll give him back 8% health. So really likes health. The defense sets are also great, but on that primary, he can use it. GK, wildly similar situation. GK is a tank. He works a lot with health. The 2 main teams that he's using nowadays, which is JMK and Padme, they also give massive boosts to health, so it's really nice to come in with a nice base so that ends up stacking on top of each other, and he gets even more health. And one of the big uses right now that is happening is the recovery, either just from the JMK squad in general, or from Padme's unique, whether on the JMK team or on the Padme team. Whenever a character is coming and assisting, which is super common nowadays, he's going to be getting protection up, which is based on that health. So you want that bar to be as high as possible. Again, General Kenobi is a character that you do want a little bit of speed on. Like, you want to work with both speed and health. You don't want him to be sitting at 0, but like 10 is okay. 15 would probably be better, but 10 is perfectly fine. Like, that's just great for him. So those are the 5 characters that I currently have health arrows on that I really like. There's more characters that I also want health arrows on that I don't currently have for various reasons. Number 1, just lack of not having them. And number 2, some of these guys aren't really at the gear level or the importance level for me to put them on, even though it would be ideal. So the first one is Barriss. This one's pretty obvious. Barriss works almost strictly off of her max health. It helps her heal whenever she gets hit by a crit. And the reason why you want it so high is because to stop Barriss from doing this, you have to kill her. And if to kill her, you have to get through her. So you want her max health to be super high because of that. She also does have a lot of turn meter mechanics built in with her kit, so she doesn't really need the speed as much as maybe another character. But yeah, it's really folly to put for me to put a health on her right now because she's gear 12. It's not going to raise nearly as much as it would on the other characters that we're looking at that are higher relics, or even some of these other characters that are higher relics. But she's definitely one that I would like to have a health arrow on. Next one is Vandor. Vandor, this, again, the only reason I don't have it on him right now is he's gear 12, and he can't really take advantage of the stats that much, but just fantastic with the health arrow. Number 1, you really need him to survive. He needs more survivability as much as he can, because without him, you're not going to be able to revive, and without him, you're not going to be able to cut into your opponent's offensive damage. He also gets 80% extra max health. He also deals damage off of his max health, and he also gains protection up based on his max health. So max health, max health, max health, max health. Just needs a whole lot of it, just a ton of it. And like, we're gear 12 here. We're not doing all that much. But if and when I can take him up to relics, he really needs it. He really needs as much health as possible. Next one. This one's weird, but I think it's kind of cool. Sith Marauder. So Sith Marauder really is being used best on a Darth Revan team. He can work in some other Sith teams. But the reason why we're putting him here is because he gains 20% turn meter when an enemy uses an ability outside of their turn. This is, again, becoming more and more common nowadays with how the teams are being made. So with that being said, he doesn't really need a lot of speed. And he gains a ton of defense when there's a lot of buffs on the field. So if you take all the heavy defense he has, which is already mitigating a ton of damage, and you slap a health arrow on as well, it makes him really hard to kill. And this doesn't stop troopers per se, but if someone's slacking on their troopers, this will definitely make it harder. It'll make it a lot harder to get there. See, right now we have a speed arrow. Really don't want that. You could maybe make a argument for an offense arrow, but at the same time, once there are so many debuffs on the field, his offense is already through the roof. Like, your 8% or whatever you're getting from the primary isn't even going to compare to, the 80... That's probably an exaggeration. Or maybe it's not. 15 ferocity on 5 characters plus the fear. Yeah, once you have 80 debuffs and you're getting like 160 offense or whatever, go for the health arrow. Go through the health arrow. Next character, Jolee Bindo. or Bindu. This is one that I really, really would like to have now. He needs to survive. Very similar to Vandor, he's the reviver on your team. So if he goes down, you're pretty much out for the count. And he has a lot of abilities in here that will help him recover his max health, and that also help him to not need as many turns. One of the big deals about needing a character to be fast is so they can take turn after turn after turn after turn to use their abilities. One of the issues with Jolie, or not one of the issues, but one of the things that needs to be taken into consideration is that his revive has a 5-turn cooldown. That's really stinking long. It'd be better off, or more beneficial, for you to call him to assist. He doesn't need to take a turn. Because again, the two teams that he's used on the most is Jedi Master Luke and Jedi Revan, both of which have just a ton and a ton and a ton of assists. So you're better off constantly trying to heal him and reduce his cooldown so that he can do what he's meant to do, rather than having him take a bunch of turns needlessly to reduce a cooldown that should already be getting reduced. So yeah, we currently have a speed arrow on him, and I would really like for that to change. Last one, and this is one it's really nice to have it, but at the same time, it's also... Fox is just not a super relevant character nowadays. He still definitely makes the cut because that's what he wants. Him, very similar to Vandor, or a little similar to Vandor and Grievous, he has a certain amount of damage built off of his max health. Not nearly as much, but still enough. And he's an attacker. You want him to survive, kind of similar to Marauder. And he also stacks it. He does a lot of things with max health. And he also has just a lot of ways to gain, both in his own kit and the rest of the First Order kit, ways to gain turn meter. And if he can gain a ton of turn meter, like, you don't really need to invest in a lot in speed. You would be much better off having a 16% health arrow. That's going to be it for today, guys. Let me know which ones I missed. Let me know where I'm wrong. Let me know about the other arrows that are also really important that aren't speed, that a lot of people have a tendency to neglect. Remember to like and subscribe. And as always, stay awesome.